very first aspect of who I am and what has shaped me is growing up in the South. Even though I live in New York for the last 32 years, I'm from Georgia. And in my childhood formation was during the civil rights movement at the time when Martin Luther King was alive and such an important moral leader. And at a time when I experienced a culture going from complete and total segregation and devaluation, racism, which of course still continues, but to be a part of that shift, to experience that shift as a child and to feel a part of it, to feel the sense of possibility that culture can change, people can change, we can change, and we can wake up to each other and we can discover new ways to be together. And so for me, that was all happening at a kind of a nonverbal level. So it's not like I was from a family of civil rights workers and it was an intellectual exercise. It's not, it was really in the body. It was emotional, it was physical, it was some other kind of knowing about how important this this world where everyone counts and everyone belongs and everyone is valued for whoever they are and whatever they bring. It was a deep knowing that this mattered to live this way. Yeah, and then the other thing that feels important right now, I'm going to see my mother who turns 90 this week, and she's an artist, and she has lived her life between two worlds, being an artist and creating, and also being the mother of a son who had medical and intellectual complexities. And so part of why I'm drawn to the work that I have cared about all my life has a lot to do with my family and my brother, and walking in the world of my mother and what this was like for her and how she made meaning of a really incredibly challenging situation during a time when there weren't very many options for families and for people who were confronted with unusual challenges. And it was as a result of that experience that I began my own journey as an artist, and actually partly as a way to survive, as a way to endure really difficult and challenging chapters in our lives, to be able to sit and sew and make things, be in one's hands. So to be able to sit in incredibly difficult situations and yet make something, literally make something of it, in contrast to all that was going on. So yeah, so those are two completely random offerings about who I am, but I feel like they both weave and interweave for my whole life, these qualities of knowing in different ways and being in the world. Yeah, being in the world. Imagination is what sets us apart as humans from all other creatures, and is a capacity that we have to imagine better, or to buy into worse. So, in other words, imagination, the capacity to engage and cultivate our personal imagination and then collective imagination. So I think it's important to say I'm as interested in collective imagination, shared imagination, as I am with the personal or individual. And of course, they go together. They're completely related. I think that the sense that something else is possible, the sense that there is a place that is being prepared for us, that the possibilities for finding our way are, in my experience, symbolic. And so it requires an imaginative view. It requires being okay in an imaginative realm in order to see and embrace the symbols that arrive. And at the same time, I like to think that what I strive for is a practical imagination. So, in other words, to me, there's a huge difference between a fantasy world and a way of imagining together with people in the situations that they live in and the realities that they face. So it's not pretend. It's not we're not pretending that that the reality is different than it is. You know what I'm saying? To me, there's a big difference. Practical imagination is one that is rooted in probably the dire realities of people's lives, particularly people who have been marginalized and are unseen, and for whom possibilities are limited or perhaps even non-existent. And so it's the kind of practical imagination that the people that I know best are often hungry for, and that it's our job as artists and creatives to make spaces in which imaginative possibilities can arise from the realities that people are in, the real limitations that people live with, and the real communities that they're in. So yeah. I just want to it's important for me to say right away that a journey that we begin with people is a lifetime, right? It's not a one-time something or another. It's not a single encounter, but it's an investment and an interest in weaving a set of possibilities and supporting a person's life to unfold over a very long period of time. So that's important in and of itself, because the unfolding of a higher potential just takes time, and particularly so in the worlds of the people that I've spent so much of my life learning with and from. And so the process of reflection that I've learned to engage in and with people and their families and their support circles is one in which people they literally see. So it's based on the Pedagogy of the Oppressed framework by Pablo Freire, that people are often limited and they're stuck in a culture of silence and invisibility, and they have no way to see their lives as meaningful, as important, and as they have no way to see themselves as actors in their life and on the conditions in which they live in. And so the kind of reflection, the kind of pedagogy that we support is literally a visual one in which people come to see together the aspects of their life that are life-giving, that are uplifting, that are life-giving, that are uplifting, that are energizing, and that are often the seeds of their gifts, the inherent gifts that people bring. And just visually, as an artist, just to say that information is often captured in green, right? So people can actually see the pattern, even if they don't read or write or don't have other ways of engaging, that there's a visual element of seeing, let's see what it is that I'm here to do. And then juxtaposed to a red information, which is what doesn't work, where am I stuck, what is not working, and so on and so forth. And that we work from the assumption that the seeds of one's capacity and potential is in the green, is on the green list. And that it's that there is no one, and this is a really important part of this assumption, that regardless of a label that anyone is given, that there is no one left out of having the seeds of this higher potential. Zero, no one's left out. And I say that because in our business, in our world, it's more the business side of our world. It's easy to, put people in, to even label the people who are labeled, right? To stratify people based on who has potential and who doesn't have potential, right? And that's not an assumption that that I would ever be a part of. And in fact, some of the most astonishing discoveries and lives unfolding that I've had a chance to be a part of are the people who are the most labeled people on the planet. So they are the people that other people cannot imagine at all what their gifts and contributions might be. And so if we engage in an ongoing conversation, a process of reflection that supports people and the people around them to see the green, if you will, to see what the seeds are. And then we feel activated to bring that to life, right? And it's not okay with us to go back to the way it is. And what I mean by that is that 9 times out of 10, the majority of people are living their life in the red, if you will. Their lives are defined by what doesn't work. And that when we have a shared sense of what more is possible, when it arrives, right? When it comes into the space of a group, and with this awareness, and I would say that it's a collective awareness. It's maybe individual, but I'm more interested in a collective awareness, that then we want to do something. We want to make a difference, right? We want to say, my goodness, how could we leave this gift, this capacity unseen and uncultivated? And it doesn't take away from the real limitations that people live with, right? So this is not about pretending that people don't have serious limitations and barriers to being in the world, but it's just saying we're not going to just settle for that. We're going to sit with both an emerging sense of possibility in the face of overwhelming limitation. And we're not going to settle with one piece of a person's life or the other. Does that make sense? What I'm listening for is the great gift of being human, the limitations that just come with being human, with just being just being enough, right? Just being enough, getting through the day, being a mother, being the only daughter now of an aging mother, being a friend, right? All the people, all the people, being in a relationship of real integrity and care and devotion with the people who matter most to me. And the desire to be a friend, in the middle of all the other countless things there are to focus on, right? To just be in relationship. And it's in the friendships and in the intimacy that somehow, to me, regardless of my own vulnerabilities or my own limitations, there's a wholeness, right? It's just to be held as a whole, complete person, especially with friends who know and experience each other's vulnerabilities. That's, I guess that's kind of what I mean about being, about just the task of being human, of showing up as yeah, just showing up. I'd say the other thing that I struggle with a lot is there is such a longing and a pressure to show up in a big way, right? Like to make a difference on some large scale and to change these big pictures, change these systems and organizations and, on and on. And to be honest, I only really know how to do what I feel confident about in very small ways, in one circle at a time, one person at a time, one community, one neighborhood at a time, to just let that be enough, to let it be enough to know and to feel like change is possible when we stay true to a scale that's human for me, that's human for me. Does that? What lands on me immediately is the great mystery of how each of us unfolds in our own way, in our own time, given whatever formations and limitations we have to live with, and that we cannot possibly know what that landscape is like in the other person, right? There's just no way to comprehend, to I think what I'm trying to express is this dance between engaging with people who and myself, my friends, who want to reach for another world that they know is possible, for something more that's possible, and holding the also deep search and longing and engagement in the inner journey, the inner process. And that particularly when people have a harder time expressing what is going on with them the capacity to listen and be increasingly aware of all of the layers um, of of um, concern, um, fragility, vulnerability, fear, that these are not hypothetical inner states. They are inner states that people come by really honestly, because the conditions in which they're growing, they're unfolding, they're evolving can be really hostile and hurtful and incredibly painful. So I think that there is just such the great gift of being human, the great gift of being imperfect. So there's such a great gift in the world, in the margins that I share, the space that people with intellectual disabilities create around them through their imperfection is really beautiful. And the space to just, for us to just, be doing the best we can, right? We're all just doing the best we can. But there's such, especially in America, right? There's such a enormous pressure for everybody to be, rushing and striving and better and, certified and professionalized and all that. And we can so easily forget the great gift of our beingness, right? Of just the capacity to be together, to enjoy each other, to laugh and to cry and cry and cry. But I guess I may not be expressing it so well, but there's just such a release in that. There's such a relief to just letting go of all of the letting go of the rush and the game of perfection, and to be okay with and to thrive and to be nurtured by our imperfection, to be to be nurtured by it rather than ashamed or hiding it or trying to compensate. And then it also becomes it just becomes as clear as it could ever be that we are not individuals. We only are growing into our higher potentials by being in relationship with others who support and are in reciprocal relations, right? In a mutual relationship where we're supporting each other. So this idea, this notion of individualism, to be and once again, I say this as a tried and true American. I mean, I am born into a culture where every bit of my cellular makeup is around individualism, competition, superiority, privilege, all the edges that separate us from each other, rather than open space to be in relationship with each other. As an artist, so you're an artist, and those of us who are also artists, actual artists, we live with this sense of awe, in a way, that something comes, right? We have an impulse. And if we are loyal to that impulse, we make the time, we make the space, we have some materials. We have someone somewhere who we think it might matter to, that we make something, right? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we just make things. For me, I know sewing for me is very much part of my spiritual life. It's a part of my, what we call in our world, self-regulation. It's incredibly quieting and rhythmic, and it's a way through one's hands to listen to yourself in a different light, to listen to the concerns of other people in a different way. But there's the sense, as artists, there's a sense that something will come from our devotion. Like there's a piece of art hanging behind you, and I don't know whether you made it. It's beautiful. It means something. It's meaningful, and it came from you. It came up from you in a mysterious sort of way. Symbols arrived, colors, feeling. And I think that's another aspect of the world that I spend quite a bit of time in, is that it is awesome. It's just awesome to see what emerges from people being even supported a little bit to have their sort of seeds, think of them as dormant seeds, begin to unfold. So there's a level of mystery and awe and really astonishment at our creativity, at the endless possibilities of human creativity, the endless capacity for humans to unfold and to open to more of life, and to more of being engaged in life and being a part of it, and emerging from shadows and limitation, and there's such an art in that. There's such a revelation. It's a revelatory journey. And I cannot even find the words to express how rich this is, for people who are in. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying this is my personal experience. The experience of a collective, being a part of each other and watching lives and richness unfold that no one ever expected, is so powerful and compelling. And so it calls out even more of us. It calls out more of all of us to create the conditions in which more of that is possible. Being absent from the relationship with people is often the result of mechanics, depersonalization, addiction, unmitigated capitalism, competition, individualism, right? We could go on and on. I mean, America gives you the longest list ever in what it looks like to be absent from caring about each other. We could go for it, like, just guns and, people shooting each other and on and on and on. I mean, let's face it, we live in a culture where people just kill each other every day, like everybody's killing each other all the time. And you got people like us talking about inclusion, like who wants to be outside on the street? Like nobody, people don't even want to go to the drugstore because you might get shot, Okay, so I'm saying these are aspects of a culture that doesn't know how to be present, or that doesn't value, I should say, presencing, which is what I think of as seeing with the eyes of the heart, right? The real beauty and potential in every single person. Nobody gets left out, even the people who drive you crazy. That love, which for me is translated into is just concern, you know, that I feel that something is missing until, you know, as long as other people don't have opportunities, don't have a shot at even the basics of having a life, a good life, a life that is, yeah, a life that is good enough, right? Never perfect. There's no such thing, but a life that is good enough, that then out of that love for the possibility and the humanity of each person, you want to act, you want to change, you know, you want to do what you can do with what you have wherever you are. And to me, that's another part of the I'm going to call this the secret to engagement, because I think often we become disengaged because we become so disenchanted by how dysfunctional the situations are around people. So it becomes easy to disengage. And that's the seduction in taking on the big picture. You know, the seduction, in my experience, taking on the big picture, it's not that you can avoid it on some level, but the seduction is that it takes you away from doing what you can with what you have wherever you are, which is what I know I experienced in my own family growing up in pretty impossible situations, you know, life and death, life and death, life and death all the time. And yet, okay, this is Tuesday, this is Monday. We're going to do what we can today with whatever we have. And that counts too. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that both, that holding. So I guess, you know, partly what I'm trying to say is holding this kind of micro level of staying engaged with each other and being open to even the smallest things that arrive and appear and nurture us, right? Which is the other gift of being with people who live in marginalized communities, is that as much as anybody, the capacity for people to stay tuned to the smallest of things is brilliant. People are a genius at it. And it's beautiful. So how do we hold on to that? We don't devalue that. Not only that, we make even more of it, but at the same time, we still take on the conditions that are keeping people trapped and stuck in limitation.
It's fascinating when you talk is that one of the things that comes up for me is that you are talking about, you know, you work and you are talking about people with real physical and mental difficulties, but it also feels like the system in America, in some ways, handicap everyone to some level, and really with, especially with this potential, right? The potential is like it closes it down so that you do really feel unable. And it's very interesting also when you talk about this relative and absolute in some way, and that the, you know, the image of the absolute, you know, this the big picture, how you call it, is so attractive is what fascinates me is, in a way, and you said, I think, or at least that's the way I hear it, is that you say it can be an escape, right? It can be an escape to avoid the reality of everyday life. Um, um, and so, how do you keep both for you? I know you. How do you keep both? How do you pay attention to both?
Well, just as you ask that question, a bird starts singing behind you. So to me, this is the gift of attention-based, awareness-based action, that we do everything we can to stay alert to the gifts coming through, to the offerings, to the bird song, right? We do everything we can to stay alert to that, because in the moments when it just seems like it's all dark and there's nothing more to do, and it is really beyond anything that we can influence. It is, because it's all a million times, it's quantum times bigger than we are just little folks, right? Just trying to get through the day. But our capacity to hold on to the bird song, right, in the moment, not only individually, but also in small groups, maybe at the level of a neighborhood or community. Like, what does it look like to nurture that song, right? That the song is arriving all the time. Those little notes, quiet, 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 little glimpses of a more beautiful world, arriving all the time. So how we let that in and say what more is possible, and also live with the incredibly overpowering dark forces that are, in fact, as you say, really killing us all. I mean, just to say it like it is. I mean, yeah, America is, you're right. Everyone is disabled in a culture that is as broken from a moral and ethical and values point of view, right? Everybody is less than on some level. So anyway, I don't know. See, even in going off into even trying to describe the overpowering aspect of pieces of that we still might be able to shift. That's all I can get my head around, is where are the pieces of that can be shifted so that the bird still sings, so that we hear that bird and we support other people to hear that and hold on to that. And yeah, I mean, in a sense, that's what capacity finding is all about. It just kind of starts with the bird.